Good morning, everybody. So, yes, I slept in a little bit today because I'm not in pain or anything, but my body needed to rest. And when my body needs to rest, I don't force it to make myself wake up unless I absolutely have to. I mean, I'm not in any kind of job during the week where I have to get up, unlike my husband who does. And I honor him from all over the place because he is amazing. Um, yeah, it's just endless, boundless energy. And I know it's taken a toll on him, and I know and he needs to do my juice, but eventually he will. And so, so this weekend, I'll tell you what, man, it has been such an eye-opening experience being on J Juice because I have been taking on things that I normally would not take on and go through with it because I was fighting myself this weekend. So here's the thing. So my husband last week said, "Hey, we're gonna go to a CCW class." He didn't ask me. He didn't say, "Hey, what do you think?" He just enrolled. He just basically made the plans, and he already, committed to it, committed me to it. I'm like, okay. So I'm like, all right. And I know that that's something that we needed to get done is to get a CCW for myself. He's has one himself. He's been qualified. We're both going to go get the background checks and everything done. But he wanted me to be qualified. He wanted me to shoot a gun and know how to shoot it and understand the laws behind it and be a concealed carry weapon specialist or be a concealed carry license holder. So, so I did it this weekend. But let's like go back a little bit. Let's say like 20, 30, 40 years. I mean, I was in California. Okay, raised in California. California, oh my God, you talk about a gun, people freak the hell out. Now, we had a gun in our house, a very small, I think it was like a 22. But my mother had it in a shelf far away, way up high. We knew it was there, but we never touched it. We were warned, don't touch this gun. This is deadly. So we never messed with the gun. It was never something that we ever knew, that my mother never showed it to us. She showed it, but she never like told us how to use it. She just said, do not touch it. This is not a toy. And that's it. And then, all over the news, all over, TV, whatever, what you see in schools and everything, everyone's afraid of guns. No one wants anyone to mess with guns. And then I'm watching all these different ID channels that talk about people getting killed, people doing this, people doing that. And so I'm watching, these shows that are giving me PTSD. And so I'm like afraid of everything. I'm afraid to even walk out the street because someone might murder me, right? So watching like these NBC, 48 hours, ID, NCIS and all that, it really does a number on a person and it makes their world smaller. And then they're told that guns are bad, guns are not a good thing. And so you have nothing in your world to protect yourself. So a girl or a guy has to live in fear if they don't have any type of way to protect themselves. And that's an insane way to live your life, is to live in fear. Now people say, well, I don't live in fear, but you're seeing now with the internet, you're seeing all these different shootings in schools and in bars and in concerts. And it's like, it can paralyze some people, and people start making different choices. They don't want to go to a place, and I still won't go to like crowded places anyway, so I don't really feel the need to. I don't go to bars, but it's like, it does limit you because and you do live with a kind of fear. So, and I was in the military too. I did shoot an M16, but I was 19, 20 years old. So I don't even remember what I felt like. I mean, back then I thought I was invincible. So yeah, I was doing the M16 and I think I did get expert. I got a few ribbons, the little ribbons, when I was out there at basic. But then that was the extent of it. So that was some basic training. Then we had like summer camp, and we did have, during summer camp with the military, because I was in the Air National Guard, we did go to different bases. Like I think we went to Fallon Air Force Base or Fallon Naval Air. I forget if it's a Naval Air Station or Air Force Base, but we did shoot the M60. So I shot the M60. I mean, you fed the bullets through and then went brrr, and that was fun. But that was the extent of it. I think maybe I shot a gun, but that was still back in like the 90s. So the 90s is when I shot guns. And then from that point forward, as I'm moving through life and as I'm getting more mutated, I have this fear of guns. I don't want to shoot them. I don't want to deal with them. It's the power of life and death in your hands. I want nothing to do with them. So, and then of course, and then fast forward to 2010, I find a guy, my husband, who's a country boy, who has all the experience with guns. And at some point, we were around people who were shooting like SKSs and all this at a gun range and everything. And asked me to try to shoot one. And I didn't even have to hold the gun. All they did was hold the gun for me, and all I had to do was just pull the trigger. I didn't even want to pull the trigger. And they were holding the gun for me. I did not want to pull the trigger at all. And it was an SKS type, okay? So, and Jason's like, you don't even want to pull the trigger? I'm like, no, I'm not going to pull the trigger. And that was like back in 2012, 2013. So I guess he just gave up, said, okay, well, I guess, you're not going to, because I don't want anything to do with guns. I mean, if he wants to have a gun, but, So anyways, fast forward to jillyjuice world. Jillyjuice, you are peeling back the layers of programming because you are now fixing the mutations, the PTSD, the fears that you have built up over time. What is it? False expectations appearing real. I mean, that's huge because I thought, oh God, don't touch this gun because it might explode in your hand, right? I mean, we have guns around the house, but I never touched them. I was like, whenever he would hold one, I'm always like ducking, thinking it's going to get shot or something, I had this natural reaction to be afraid of him. And he's just like, what the hell? It's unloaded. What the heck? And so I was like, well, and about a couple months ago, a friend of ours wanted to take me shooting. They're like, okay, we got to get you comfortable around guns because, we live in not a bad neighborhood, but we live in a neighborhood where you never know what's going to happen. And you don't want to be caught unawares. And I do have guns where they're ready to shoot if I need to. But, you need to get comfortable. So I went on the gun range. That was a couple months ago. And you probably saw me wearing the yellow glasses and showed, me shooting the gun and everything. But that was my first time shooting a gun like that since like the 90s. And that was a major breakthrough. But I wasn't shooting to qualify. I wasn't shooting to try to get the shot. I mean, I was shooting somebody else's gun that I thought maybe I might buy, but I wasn't sure. But we never committed to buying it. It was like $500, but we never committed to buying it. So that went to the wayside. And we still have guns here, and then we have like a 9mm here and everything. And I was told that these guns that we have a major kick, right? And I'm like, I don't want to deal with it. The kick is what's huge for me because I don't like loud noises. I don't like loud noises. I don't like backfires of a car. When I hear gunshots, I'm like cringing, right? So I'm like, and I don't like loud music again because my husband loves loud music. So loud noises, I could probably trace it back to maybe back in Vietnam when the bombs were dropping, which I was born in 1974. And so, 1975 was the fall of Saigon. So I'm sure there was still residual turmoil in the region of Vietnam, of South Vietnam. So that could have been why, where I gotten some of my PTSD around really loud noises. And that's always stayed with me throughout my whole life because I don't like anything loud. But lately, I've been dealing with Jason's music, and then when I shot that gun, because I was just, that first time a couple months ago, I shot that gun and it really took a lot out of me to do it. And it was loud and I was cringing. I was like, and it was fun. I got over that first time. So I got comfortable with hearing the gun. I got comfortable with the kick. Now, all guns are not created equal. The smaller the gun, right? The louder the pop, right? The louder the kick because it doesn't have the heaviness of the gun to absorb that. So where does the energy go? It goes in you. So there's the kick. So that right there, was something that I didn't know until I went to this class. But so I was afraid of how the kick was. Um, yeah, great, Patricia. Great. And that's amazing that your dad did that. That's awesome that parents do that to help their kids get over that fear. So anyway, so then this last week, my husband said, okay, you're going to a CCW class. There's an opening. You're going to do it. You're doing it. And Jason, and you're going to use this gun that I used to qualify. Because Jason qualified back when I was in Portugal. He took that class when I was, when I was out there doing my thing. So he used that gun and it was great. I mean, it's a 9mm, I guess. Yeah, it's 9mm, but I didn't know the kick of it. I don't know anything about that. So he said, no, it doesn't have that much of a kick, right? little did I know. And here's the thing. You don't have a frame of reference. So, and it's been a while. It's been a couple months ago since I shot the other guns. And then I don't shoot a lot of guns. So I don't really know from one gun to the next how loud and how, crazy the recoil is. So I just used the gun that he gave me, and we went to the class. I did, I did all the paperwork where you actually go through questions and you go through, how the gun, what are the components of a gun, the different types, double action, single action, striker, the whole mechanism of how the gun works, when the pin, the drum, the powder, the frame of the gun, all of that stuff. And then, of course, the laws around it. And the whole point of like the diameter, like, 22 versus a 9mm versus a 380, right? So those are the things that, I was learning about the gun. So that way you take the fear away and then learn how to handle it, with the revolver. There's a thing where, you look at the revolver and there's the double action where the single action where you cock it. So that's one action. So that's the action that you do. And then the single action is when you actually shoot it. And then learning how to uncock the gun without shooting it. That was another thing that was a trip, right? I didn't know, right? I figured, once it's cocked, you got to shoot it. But no, you don't have to shoot it. You can actually uncock it without that thing hitting the bullet. So, and then the same thing with the slide action. And those are double action, where it's, well, you can get rid of yeah. If it's already been cocked, then you can just do this and get rid of the bullets, right? But so yeah, learning how to get the magazine out, learning, just the dry fire, learning how to hold it. And dry fire is perfectly okay with the guns that we have. Maybe the older guns you can't dry fire because of the pin and whatever else. But with the newer guns, the guns that we have today, you can actually dry fire and practice your trigger control and your aiming, the sight and picture, that type of thing. So was it sight alignment and sight picture? So I learned all of that. And so that the class, like the actual book class, was easy, right? That's the easy part, is learning those things and getting over the fear of just handling the different types of guns, the revolver, and then the double action. Okay. And the double actions where where when you pull the trigger, it's harder because if it's a hair trigger, then that's like basically like a single action, right? Because it's already cocked and ready to go. Double action where you really have to pull it hard to get that bullet out. So so that was cool. But it was actually going on the freaking range was where the psychology started working. This is where Jilly Juice stepped in. Because I was wrestling. I was okay on Saturday because it was all book class, right? But it was Sunday where I was dreading, in a way. There was still that pit of fear in my belly. And this is where I'm like, okay, I'm going to steel myself. And I'm going to be like, hey, no fear, no fear. I asked, hey, does the gun ever explode? Well, here's the thing. If you have mud in the muzzle of your gun, yeah, it could explode. If you misfire, which it doesn't misfire, or there's a squib, misfire, and a hang fire. Okay, and they tell you, if these things happen, if it misfires, then you wait, and then you let it, and it's probably going to fire later because it's a hang fire. There's something going on. There's some corruption going on in the gun where it doesn't fire right off the bat. It fires later. So you keep holding it and wait. And keeping it in a safe position until it fires, and then you empty the magazine and you open it and then you put it down. And then a squib is when I think it, fudge, what is that squib? But it means something. So I think where it doesn't fire at all or something. I forget, but I'll look it up. But anyway, so, so I learned that stuff. So when I was on the range and I'm using the gun that my husband used, which is good, I knew it was fine. It's a 9mm. He asked, okay, who wants to go first? Well, I'm going to go first because I needed to get rid of this fear. I just had to do it. I'm like, okay. And so, yeah, and of course someone's right next to me too. Then they're getting qualified because we had to get so many on the paper. Okay, we had to get so many on the paper. So this was the paper. This was my shot thing. This is my target stuff. So when I was shooting the gun, my trigger. So I had the sight alignment and the sight picture figured out. But my trigger, I was nervous with my trigger finger. And so all of my shots were going down because I was just like anticipating the bang and just trying to like just jerking the trigger. And so this is what was going on. I was shooting down. And you can't qualify shooting down here. To qualify for a CCW, you have to get in the black somewhere. So this was when I learned the psychology of the fear behind the loud noise, because 9mm are freaking loud. I didn't realize how loud, and I had ear protection. But the girl next to me had a 22, which wasn't that loud. But then when my husband was shooting the gun, I took my thingies off, my earplugs or my phones off, and took my glass off and went to the back to the lunch table, and I heard my husband shoot the gun. Oh my God, it makes me jump. I can imagine what happened with the girl next to me when she heard me every time I was shooting my gun. It was loud. So I didn't realize that actually my gun was the loudest of all the women that were in there. They were all doing 22s and I'm doing a freaking 9mm, and it was so goddamn loud. And I didn't realize that. I'm like, Jason, what the hell? Would it have been easier if I did a 22? It was like, well, so the fact that I qualified on a 9mm was like amazing. So finally I figured out what was going on. It was the fact that I was anticipating that I could control the muzzle. Because once the gun left, you could feel the recoil. So it really, it made the muzzle move, and I was trying to control that. And when you're trying to control the muzzle after the gun has left, that's when I was jerking it down because I was trying to make it stop from jerking around when I was shooting it. But that's not how you're supposed to do it. You're supposed to do it slowly, keep, your right arm and your left arm steady, and then you do a stance, which I had my right foot back and my left foot forward. And it was just taking in the energy and keeping it steady, and then doing a very continuous movement of the trigger. And so finally, I was able to then get in the black. And then, so we were doing it one at a time, one bullet at a time, and then we had like 5 at a time. And so I just kept doing it. And it hurts too, because after a while, when you're shooting a gun that's that loud and that, that recoil, that's a lot of energy to take into your hands. So my hands were getting sore, and I'm trying to put the bullets in the magazine, which I had my husband do. So I'm like, okay, honey, I don't do this every day. If I practice, I'll get calluses and do that. But yeah, it's a tiny bit sore here, nothing horrible. But yeah, I felt a little bit soreness in my body yesterday because I'm taking in energy. It's a lot of energy to take in on a continuous basis. So, no, I'm not going to be a marksman, and I'll go and practice every so often just to kind of keep it up there. Will I practice every weekend? Probably not, but I will practice enough to make sure, and we're going to clean the gun to make sure that it is properly taken care of and store it correctly as well. So and I was having difficulty in the beginning. My husband wasn't sure if I kept doing this, if I kept shooting below the black, I wouldn't have been able to qualify. And I was facing the fact that may happen. And I'm like, fuck. I'm like, damn it, I can't waste this $85 because that's what it costs for the CCW class, is $85. So I just said, okay, I've got to figure out the psychology behind this. What the hell am I doing? And the guy that, the CCW instructor, he's amazing. He instructed me through it. He was awesome. He just walked me through and tried to figure out the psychology of why it was I kept jerking my thing down. And so finally, when I didn't care where the muzzle went, because you can't care where the muzzle goes after the bullets left the gun, then I started hitting into the black. I started, sighting my sights a little bit higher up here. And I was trying to aim for this, of course. And I did get it bullseye a few times. But the psychology was, don't worry about what happens after the gun has left the muzzle, because you can't control the muzzle after the bullet has left, the gun. So that's when things started improving. And then I'm like, then he goes, well, fine, you finally passed, because you finally, now you understand it's about trigger control. I didn't realize that you couldn't. I thought that when you just jerk, the gun or jerk the trigger, that it'll just go. And I'm trying to get rid of the bullets. You don't do that. You have complete control of your trigger as well as the gun, because the gun is going to take on the energy that you put into it. It's unforgiving. I didn't realize that. So that was things that I learned. And if it wasn't for jillyjuice, I wouldn't have even attempted this. But the fact that I know I live in a fucked up society, this is what incentivized me to go through it. Not because I was under pressure, because my husband was there. I mean, I want to make him proud too, because he's been wanting me to do this. And I've been like, no, I can't. I'm from California, right? That's always been my hue and cry. I'm from California. We don't do guns, right? No, but we live in a messed up society. I've dealt with messed up people on my Facebook. I've dealt with messed up people through, private message, my website, whatever, right? Women, no matter what, regardless if you're in the public eye or if you're just going about your business, you need to know how to protect yourself. We don't want any victims in our society. There's no victims on jillyjuice, and there should be no victims anywhere. And so the only way for you not to be a victim is if you find a way to protect yourself. Because you can't live in a bubble. You really got to mix in with people out there, and you can't control what goes on out there. You can't control families that, purge out mutated kids that make bad decisions. You can't control that. So the only way that what you control is your world. And you can't rely on the police to get there when you need to. And now you never ever use deadly force unless you absolutely have to. And property is not a reason to use deadly force. Okay, they have to be in your house, and then they have to really be, if they're in your house and you have all the reason to fire a weapon. But if they're away from your house, outside of your house, then you have no reason to fire a weapon. But if they're in your house, yes. But now you're out there on the street. Like if I'm, if CCW, we can go anywhere except for state buildings, government buildings, and there's a list of places where I cannot bring my guns, or if there's a sign that says that no concealed carry weapons at all. Okay, but out there, let's say I'm at a gas station and someone's trying to, jump on my car. That's not a justifiable reason to use deadly force. You just get in your car and drive down to the police station with the guy on your car or something, or you call the police. Okay, so, or if you're at ATM and they're trying to hold you up, but if they hold you up and you feel that you're in fear for your life, then yeah, you have a reason. But if someone says, hey, give me your money, and you kill them, no, because they could not be carrying it all, right? So there's very, very, very specific reasons of why you would ever use deadly force. I will never, ever go and find trouble to justify me using the gun. Oh, hell no. But some people will. Some people will go and find, some people will be really have a lot of bravado and feel like, oh yeah, I have a gun, you can't fuck with me, so I'm going to go do whatever the hell I want. That's not the way to look at having a concealed carry weapons permit, to be able to feel like you're better than other people, that you can say whatever you want, do whatever you want. Oh, hell no. I will never, ever, even if in traffic, if someone's being stupid, never, ever flash a gun. Never, ever look for trouble because you have a gun. Oh, hell no. This is not the wild, wild west. I do not want to ever use my gun and I don't even want to flash it to anybody. You guys, everybody on Facebook knows that I have one, which is good. But when I'm out there in the world, I'm not trying to show. Now, when you're an open carry, yeah, you're showing people that, yeah, you have a gun, don't fuck with me, but then you're also a target. Okay? So there's a double-edged sword for being an open carry. When you're concealed is when no one knows what's going on, who's packing what. So if something ever does happen, then you'd have your weapons training and you can take down that assailant before they mow everybody down with their gun. Okay, that's the whole point of the Second Amendment, or people that have concealed carry, or why we need to have the good guys with the guns, so that way we can counter the mutated people who have guns illegally. But we're not looking for trouble. That's the whole point, is I'm not looking for trouble, but I want to defend myself if it ever comes to that. I don't want to feel like I can't walk in my own neighborhood. But I still won't look for trouble. I'll still walk my dog. I still won't go into certain parts of my neighborhood because why look for trouble? Why even go there? But I still want to be able to do what I need to do and, not look for trouble, but do what I got to do and still have the protection. Okay. So now this could be different. Some of you have other fears. Some of you have other fears like public speaking or doing Facebook Live or, I don't know, applying for a college that you were afraid to apply to because you didn't think you can qualify. But now, you're doing jillyjuice and you're now more focused and you're able to study and take in concepts. And now you're like, okay, I can go and apply at this college or apply for this thing and or apply for this job and nail the interview and bam. See that we all have different fears. One of the biggest ones for me was a gun. Okay. And I got over that fear. All of those false expectations appearing real finally washed away. I have a very major respect for guns. I don't like to play with them unless I absolutely have to, unless it's like, I'm practicing dry firing. But I'm giving myself a break today. But yeah, I have no problem. And he says that, it is about practice. You got to handle your gun and when it's unloaded, so that way you just get used to how your gun works. So, that's huge for me. I never would have even think about doing this a few years ago. It would even cross my mind to do this a few years ago. So who knows what's available for you guys? Thank you so much for sharing this information. Karen Skidmore Elpon says, thank you so much for sharing all this information. I've been curious about all of this. Everyone around me here is brainwashed about guns. Yeah. Oh, yeah, because it is scary when you have a power. See, fear comes from ignorance. That's the thing that I learned is that people are ignorant about guns and the power of them, and they're ignorant about how they work and how to use them safely. I was telling Jason, because Jason was trying to tell me, oh, here, do this before class. Hey, just take this gun. I'm like, no, I'm going to wait till I go to the class and I learn systematically, first of all, how a gun is what it's made up of, how it works, the different types, single action, double action, striker, misfire, squib, hang fire. There's specific things that you have to know how to clean them. Well, you learn your instructor manual. And just even handling, understanding, how to drop the magazine, how to roll the cylinder, barrel out. And how to push the pins to get the shells out. Okay. So, and how to use them safely, how to do the slide. Because the slide was the biggest thing that I was fearful of, because I'm like, oh my God, I might lose a finger. Well, don't put your finger in there when the slide's going back and forth, right? So there are things that you have to know how to use the gun and have no fear. And you have to have a little bit of a strength too, to do that slide. Because some of the slides, may seem, and I couldn't do this slide. I think on the Saturday, the guy gave me one of the guns that had the slide where you had to slide it to then get it cocked so you can do the dry fire. And I couldn't even do it. It was too hard for me. I was like, what the hell? So then I went home with my own gun that had the same kind of slide on a 9mm, and I was practicing it. And I didn't even go straight home and do it. I was just like, ugh. And then finally, like later on in the evening, I was kind of doing it. And then Sunday morning, I was doing it and I was getting comfortable with it. And then I was like, okay, I can do this. So it's a step-by-step process of just handling a gun that's unloaded, being just understanding what this is, feeling it. There's no fear around an unloaded gun. So those are the layers of programming that the CCW class was able to deprogram me from, that I was able to release, as well as then reprogram me into a different way. See, that's what jillyjuice is about. Jillyjuice is about deprogramming from the program of all your fear and then reprogramming yourself into the right direction. And that's lost on a lot of people who don't like that word, programming, brainwashing type of thing, because it's like they don't want to feel like somebody else had the power over them. They want to feel like they've made these decisions. But nobody out there has made decisions or learned stuff out of a vacuum. We weren't born knowing all whatever we know, whatever it is today. Somebody told us this information and then we adopted it as reality. And now someone's telling us something different, like jillyjuice, and we're like, oh no, this is not what I was taught, so I'm going to reject And then that's where this pushback is because people don't want to be deprogrammed if they're so comfortable in their current programming, but yet they're sick and they're suffering and they're victims and they're not happy. And you're like, dude, it's because of your programming. You're suffering because of all of your programming, and then your biochemistry is being programmed along with you too, and that's why you're suffering. So why not try on the idea of deprogramming all of that suffering and victim mentality, and then reprogramming major pro-life and be in an empowered position? Thank you, Lindsay Marie. So that's what I learned. And I had to face that fear. Oh my God, a gun is scary. It really, truly is. You really have to understand the power behind it and then learn about it. Okay. So that was my takeaway from this weekend. And so, and I, at some point during that class yesterday, when I was trying to qualify and I was, and I wasn't getting into the black and I was getting all the way into the dirt, and I'm like I'm still around here. Maybe I'm shooting somewhere here or way the hell out here. I was just like, oh, I want to give up. I want to give up. This really sucks. Why isn't this easy for me? What the hell? And so I had to really face what I wanted. I wanted to qualify. I really did. I wanted to qualify. And so I made myself just step up to what I said I wanted to do. And I did it. Because no, I wouldn't have qualified if I was way below the black. I wouldn't have. And it would have been within, of course, the CCW instructor's right to do that, because, hey, why would you put somebody out there that is doing crazy ass shots all over the place, right? Not getting to the target, but, going somewhere else. You don't want to have stray bullets going different places, right? You wanted to go right to the target. And that was the whole point of qualifying, is that you know how to use a gun so it goes to the target, not to some other house down the street, when your whole point is to go to that target. Okay? So that was huge. That was huge for me. And that's why I'm saying this is available for you guys, is that whatever fear that you have, whatever it is, you can overcome it. But it does take the reprogramming, your biochemistry, as well as your whole mentality, your thought process. And that's a scary thing for people who are very comfortable being miserable and being a victim. Eventually, either you'll get tired of it or you just go to your grave being a miserable victim. One of the two. You have two choices. You go to your grave being a victim, and it's right now in the Matrix. Those that are against jillyjuice, they're going to go to their grave as a victim because they even think jillyjuice is victimizing them. So no matter what, whether it's jillyjuice or some pharmaceutical or some chemtrail or some 5G, they will go to their grave as a victim regardless. If it wasn't jillyjuice, it'd be something else. So that mentality of victim mentality is in the Matrix. And so jillyjuice says, okay, we don't have victims on jillyjuice. There are no victims on jillyjuice. There are people who want to understand and learn and push past their fears and understand where this girl's coming from, or not, or go back into the system and play in the fear of victim mentality. That's what my takeaway was this weekend, is the fact that I did not have to play in that fear victim mentality that I've played in my whole life, because I was raised in that way. No fault of my mother's own, because this is what she was raised with. Okay? This is what her grandparents were raised with. They were victims from either the Holocaust to, women's feminist rights to whatever else that California has out there as far as victim rights and stuff, right? So now we're turning the table and saying, hey, we're not going to support victim mentality anymore. Let's peel back those layers of fear, those false expectations appearing real, and start empowering ourselves. And that does take work. It does take peeling back those layers of programming and then reprogramming. Because when I went past both of my life insurance and property and casualty insurance tests, and this is a lot of information. I took a week and programmed myself for short-term memory to just pass the test. That was my intention. My intention was not to learn everything in the texts, in the publications of insurance field, because all that stuff you're not going to use at all in the field, when you're out here actually in the agency. But you can program your mind to do something if you truly want to do it. And so that's what I did, was I deprogrammed myself and then I reprogrammed myself. No different than studying for a test and passing it. Yeah, Lonnie, my husband is thrilled. I saw him in a different light yesterday. When I was asking him to load my magazine, because my hands were just sore because of just shooting that gun. It's like, it's like that energy, that energy is taxing, right? And I was looking at him like, oh my God, my husband's a country boy. Oh my God, I'm so proud to be his wife. Because we were out, we were in the woods, and he was wearing his yellow jacket and his hat, and he has a little beard here, and he's the cutest little country boy. I just love him to death. And he is adorable. He is so adorable. And I just really fell in love with him all over again yesterday, because we were doing something together that we actually, because I don't fish a lot. I'm not a hunter. I'm not going to go hunting. I'm not a fisherman. And so, we have a lot of things in common. Like, he's a perfectionist just like me. And, but we don't do a whole, yeah, we'll go to movies and stuff, but this was something that we can do together, and that that I can finally bond over. And it's because I've been growing and changing, and, and so has he. And, you're at 7 years of marriage, and some people's marriages disintegrate at 7 years because they find that they're growing apart. Their life trajectory has changed. But we're actually, that's true, Karen, but we're actually growing together, because he's, understanding where I'm going. I know where he's going. Right, Gail? And, and he knows that if anything happens to him, I'll pick up, I'll be there to pick up any pieces if anything happens to him, and same goes for me, So believe me, we're there till the end for each other. Yeah, I know, huh? Husbands are awesome. They are studs. My husband's a stud, and I'm so happy I chose him. So I did choose him. He didn't really, yeah, he chose me because I was just some cute girl on Fast Flirt, but I really actually chose him. You have a menu. That's right, Gail. We both had a menu of people that we were going through and figuring out who. And, I took a shot in the dark, literally. And thank God I landed, and nailed it. So, yeah, and it took some time. It wasn't like he was this ready-made package. It took investment on his end. It took investment on my end. And we both made it work, despite all the forces that were working against us. Whether it was his family, whether it was my issues, whether it was other stuff. We definitely had forces that were working against us, but we overcame that. And we weren't even on jillyjuice at the time, right? But we knew what we wanted. I knew what I wanted from him. He knew what he wanted from me. And then finally, after the honeymoon period was over, we finally started growing together. We really did. And then we had some times that tested us. When I first rolled jillyjuice out, he was just like, what the hell? And I started seeing my biochemistry changing. He was like, what the hell? This is different than what I signed up for. Right, Lonnie, right? And so, so he figured out where I was coming from, why it is that my biochemistry was, going in this direction. And it wasn't going to be like what he thought in the beginning, right? I'm not going to be a porn star. You're not going to get that girl. So he understands. He doesn't love it that, we're not going to be like porn stars together. But hey, there's bigger things than being a porn star. Bigger and better things. So it's things that we're recognizing and that we're growing towards. And, and you just kind of roll with the punches of life. And the fact that I was able to stand up to my government and give them what they wanted, and the only thing they had for me was saying, hey, you can't advertise in this way, that was great. I know, yeah, I'm funny. The fact that I stood up to the OAG and the FTC, and I gave them what they needed, and then they, in turn, with all my research, I think they were thankful that all the research that I did. So they just said, hey, you just can't say this, 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 and this. You can't even indirectly say this, this, and this. And so I complied. I am now in compliance. So, I have been tested and I overcame. That's huge. That's the power of jillyjuice, where you can be tested, where you think that with this test you're going to fail. People thought I was going to fail back in May. They really did. They're like, hey, she's not going to be able to substantiate anything that the OAG is asking her. She's not going to be able to do it. Oh, yeah, articles, links. That's not going to be enough substantiation. And lo and behold, they had nothing to say. So they pass it on to the FTC. The Federal Trade Commission was the one that basically answered and gave me the last directive. So I'm cool. I'm cool. And I will continue to keep achieving the goals that I want. And right now, sky's the limit. If I want to be a baker or whatever else, I can do that. It's like right now, I haven't even thought about it. Right now, the books that I have and teaching all of you guys the jillyjuice and teaching the possibility and giving the possibility is right now the current goal. But, it's slow going because it's still taking off. It's still, people are still kind of wrestling with this idea of, wow, possible immortality. What? So it's going to be, slow and steady wins a race. Yeah, slow and steady wins the race. And then eventually, the traction will get there. Thanks, Gail. The traction will finally get there, and then people who are in different positions, maybe more and more publicized positions, will start doing this and start talking about it. Because really down the road, when people are on TV, let's say the Property Brothers, let's say they did say jillyjuice, because I was listening to that video, the YouTube video that my friend Lisa Marie Prince was putting out there, and saying that Property Brothers said jillyjuice. I heard that, and I let's say they did say that. Well, they stay in their profession for years, and they're not aging. They're not dying off like Dr. Phil. Dr. Phil's aging like crazy. So everyone's be like expecting Dr. Phil to retire at some point, right? Because he can only last so long in his meat suit that's degrading. And then you have the Property Brothers that are on TV forever or doing different things, but they're still in the public eye, right? And they're like, wait, this person isn't aging. What the hell? Well, they don't want to be looked at as a reptilian. They don't want to be looked at as some alien, right? Because there's still a stigma around aliens and reptilians. So they got to say jillyjuice, because what are you going to say when you're living for a long time and you're in the public eye? I have a justification of being young forever because I created jillyjuice. But what does the Property Brothers or anyone else that's doing jillyjuice that's on TV making a living in the public eye? You can only say plastic surgery for so long. I'm sure, you can only claim plastic surgery for so long. You can only claim creams and detoxes for so long. Eventually, your age, when you're degrading inside, you're not doing anything but the matrix stuff, it's going to destroy you, and then you'll have to step down and then let somebody else come in that's younger. So when you have someone like the Property Brothers or anyone like, on TV that does these types of shows, and they're staying young and youthful for a very long time, let's say indefinitely, they might as well just say jillyjuice, because that way it will just then, it'll give them off the firing line of being a reptilian or an alien or some devil, right? Because that's what people say, like, oh, Jillian's, she's an antichrist because you're not supposed to live forever. That's for the devil, right? These are these religious groups that don't believe in immortality or possible immortality because they think it's like witch's brew, right? So they'll automatically dub you as a witch because you're living a very long time because you understand the human body, right? Well, these people in high profile positions that are on TV out there, they've got to be able to justify why it is they have not aged. People call them vampires, right? They can call me a vampire. No, this is freaking salt, cabbage, and water, and lactobacillus and nutrients. There is nothing satanic or, vampirish about what I'm doing. So it would behoove anybody that is on TV who is doing jillyjuice to say they're doing it because they don't want to be dubbed or labeled as a vampire. because vampires live forever, right? Based upon all the different shows, and they look youthful, but really they're like dead inside, right? Yeah, nobody on jillyjuice is a vampire. We're actually very much alive. If you drink fermented cabbage juice daily, you wouldn't need. I attended a class with a naturopathic, and she clearly stated if you drink fermented cabbage juice daily, you wouldn't need any of this. I about fell off my. Yeah, oh, I'm sure. I am sure that things are coming to light. Now, I have people asking me, on Facebook Messenger, which I don't like people messaging me on Facebook, right? Like, oh, can you go and explore, doctor this, doctor that, right? And they're talking about the microbiome, they're talking about, fermented foods. But you have to realize they're not saying how much to drink, for one, and they're not saying this is what to expect when you're drinking this much. So it doesn't matter if a doctor out there is, promoting fermented, cabbage juice, or promoting, I don't know, talking about the mic of the gut, and all that stuff, right? Because they're not talking about the sheer amount, the volume for one, because it's about massive nutrition, and they're not talking about the healing symptoms. They don't want to get sued for malpractice. Because when you have a doctor, when you have an actual license as a doctor, and you're telling people, okay, drink this, drink that, right? And then they drink it. Let's say they drink a bunch of it, and all of a sudden they have some kind of like, who knows what. They trigger a future trigger. Guess what? That patient may sue that doctor, because remember, that doctor has a license. He has malpractice insurance, because that's what doctors do. They give out advice, and if a person gets sick from that advice, that person has recourse to go after that doctor, because that doctor took upon, an oath, the Hippocratic oath, do no harm. And this person is going to be like, you just harmed me, so I have grounds to sue you, right? So these doctors, these naturopathics, these doctors that are talking about fermented juice will never ever tell you how much. They will never ever tell you about the healing symptoms, because they don't want to get sued. So you'll never really see any major difference when you take on a doctor's protocol that does talk about fermentation, because they're not cluing you in on the volumes and what to expect, because they don't want their license to be on the line. And they may look young, but their youngness is only to last so long because they're not drinking enough. But if they are drinking a lot, let's say they are, and they're talking about this, well, they're going to have people that are saying, oh yeah, I'll do that, and they're dying. And then what's going to happen is that someone says, oh, hey, I have this issue. Then they're going to say, oh yeah, well, plant-based therapies. This is the key thing, is that these doctors that talk about fermentation and the gut and all that stuff, they also believe in plant-based therapies. What is plant-based therapies? They're doing the detoxes, they're doing the spices and the herbs and the cannabis. Plant-based therapies are in the cannabis world. They're like, oh yeah, there's all these great remedies in cannabis, right? And then people take cannabis, and then they stagnate their immune system. And then the person eventually just degrades, because there's nothing beneficial with cannabis except for anesthetizing a healing symptom. So, that's why I don't want anybody asking me about doctors or asking my opinion on the doctors that are out there, because they're still in the matrix. They still subscribe. They will never ever talk about immortality. They still subscribe to the matrix way of doing things, because they don't want their patients suing them. Now, they may be doing jillyjuice protocol, but they won't talk about it. They may put a spin on the protocol and say, oh yeah, take some cannabis if you're feeling woozy or if you're feeling bad. And so this is when time will tell who are the liars in the naturopathic doctor world, who are doing jillyjuice, who are promoting all of these different plant-based therapies. And but see, here's the thing, their patients are dying. They're not going to remember who they are. So this person's been around looking the same for years and years and years, prescribing this stuff, right? And yeah, the patients may see, little superficial changes and think the world of them, right? And then, and this is where us as people on the Jilly Juice watching, like I'm going to be watching all of these different doctors that claim that they have this thing with fermentation and all this stuff, right? So, and then we'll say, hey, you've been around for 40 years. You don't look any different, but yet you're prescribing and you're promoting cannabis. Since when and then we can find somebody on their protocol who died on this person's diet, right? Now, here's the thing, we had somebody in my protocol that was in hospice. But if you are doing something that is promoting life, like Jilly Juice, then you're actively doing it, then there's no reason to die. But if you're promoting cannabis, then yeah, there's would be a reason why a person would be dead, because cannabis doesn't give you life. Cannabis anesthetizes you. It doesn't promote health. So, but that's so far in the future, and I'm hoping that it doesn't get to that point. But I'm looking at the deception out there, and I don't put it past deceptive marketing practices. And I don't put it past that people are afraid to use the word Jilly Juice at all during their promotion of their own practices and their licensed doctors. So I don't know. I mean, maybe these doctors that are promoting a little bit of fermentation and plant-based therapies, maybe they really don't have any idea that it's about volume and it's about dealing with the healing symptoms and not about turning to cannabis or other plant-based therapies. Maybe, I don't know. But, if I was a deceptive person in their world, that's what I would do if I was deceptive, but I'm not. But but I wouldn't put it past crafty people. People are crafty. But then so is the plastic surgery, industry. So is the esthetician industry. That's deceptive practices. That's saying, hey, we're gonna make your skin look beautiful so it looks like you're healthy and what you're doing is healthy, when you're really dying inside, but no one knows this. And then you're also promoting a protocol, like working out or doing something, and you're taking, these creams. But, the creams and the plastic surgery and the esthetician stuff will only last so long, because when your insides are all messed up, it does come out in your face. Plastic surgery is okay for like a very small window of time. And then as your body degrades even more, then that plastic surgery looks even more ridiculous on people who are not taking care of themselves. So, that's my thoughts on that. But anyway, so yeah. So the benefits of Jilly Juice is you'll get past your fears. You will create your own future. Sky is the freaking limit. You will be able to do whatever it is that you put your mind to, because you will have nothing to stop you. No obstacles, no major programming, no health issues that are going to stop you, no brain fog issues. It's like you're going to be a free person. You're not going to wonder if you have sex, you're going to have a kid, because maybe you don't want children anymore. Well, when you're 100% healthy, you don't have to butcher yourself to take out your reproductive system or get a spay or a neuter, or I'm sorry, a hysterectomy or a vasectomy, or getting your tubes tied. You just get 100% healthy and you won't need to worry about fertility. You don't have to be fertile. Okay? So being 100% healthy is a freedom in of itself. That is the freedom of Jilly Juice. Is that you will get to a point to where you will not rely on anyone but yourself. And then sky's the flipping limit. And you won't be a slave to a system and be a victim. Because that's what I'm trying to get across, is that triggering CPS, triggering health insurance, triggering EPA, whatever, all those government agencies, when you're not using it to your advantage, okay, is a sign of a mutated person. So if you're not mutated, you wouldn't trigger CPS, so you won't be a victim of a possible, corrupt person. You go get my book. Go to jillyjuice.com, Jilly, Lindsay, JUICE.com. Get my book. It has the recipe, the protocol, it has the diet in there, it has the science behind my information, and then you can send us an email with the receipt, and then we'll get you into our discussion forum that's anonymous, so you're not being targeted on Facebook, and then you can ask unlimited questions. It's unlimited support. I don't charge at all for any yearly subscription. You buy the book, you send us a receipt, you're in there for life. Okay? Because the whole point of Jilly Juice is to understand what you're doing. I don't answer any questions on Facebook because it's low-hanging fruit, for one. And number two, people don't value things that are very easily accessible. They value things that they have to invest in. So when you buy the book for $19.95, it's an investment. Or the $9.99 for an ebook, right? And it's through my publisher, Lulu. And then you have to invest in sending me an email. And then you have to invest in doing the login and password. Then you have to invest in actually getting into the discussion forum and actually invest in typing out your question. It takes proactivity. It takes forethought to actually do my protocol, for one, and to get into my discussion forum. There is no forethought on Facebook. Facebook for me is more of a marketing thing. It gives you guys the possibility to then make an accurate decision for you on which direction you want to take. That's all Facebook is used for. And that's why I got away from having that 60,000 person group, because it was such low-hanging fruit, and I was spinning my wheels to people who had no intention of really doing this. They just wanted to troll me. So that's why Private Messenger is only for testimonies. It's not for questions except for how to get to the website. And that's it. I don't, people do ask me, well, does Jilly Juice do this? Does Jilly Juice do that? And I'm like, hey, Jilly Juice does not discriminate. Okay, you have 11 different systems with just different mutations. The only difference is that some of you are men and I'm a woman. That's the only difference. All the mutations are just different conglomerations of issues on the same 11 different systems. That's all. So nothing with Jilly Juice is going to discriminate. The body needs nutrition. And every single thing in your body that's a cell has the ability to regenerate if it gets the right nutrition in the right conditions. And then you have to understand how the laws of your immune system work. And that's what's in my book. So I talk about the potential for the human body to regrow organs, to regrow limbs, to reverse the aging process. That is a possibility with the human body in the right conditions. And then I don't make any kind of connection, but then I have the Jilly Juice protocol. This is a protocol: the diet, the healing symptoms, and how to make the recipe. Okay? So you see, there's Jilly Juice protocol. This is the possibility of the human body. You make your own connections. And then my next book that Kevin is writing with myself, a little bit with myself, is a lot more science. So I have enough science to substantiate enough to get the OAG off my back. But now Kevin's going to give you way more in-depth science. And we're working on that right now. We just secured a contract with my publisher again. And then once we get that written out and we have it all edited to their guidelines, then you will see even more details. So there's enough details to keep people satisfied with that primer, which is the book that I have right now. But you'll get even more details on the sodium channels in your cells, why it is, reproduction, why that is a sign of a death trajectory, the body dropping seed so it can carry the species forward so that way extinction does not occur. That's the whole point of reproduction. So reproduction is not a healthy in of itself. Reproduction is a sign that it needs to carry the species forward. If you are 100% healthy, then you don't need to reproduce because you are the best copy of yourself. The reason why they wanted us to reproduce is because we can build standing armies, have a huge thriving society of slaves, right? And there's powers in numbers. So they've perfected how to get people to reproduce and to be very good at one or two specific jobs, and their whole life is their job. Right now in our society, your mother, your father are in psychology, or they're in fireman, policeman, lawyer, or whatever, right? Either you're going to go that direction and do what they did, and then do your 10 or 15, 20 years of school, right? And then, or 23 years of school, and then you go into your profession for another 30 years, and then you retire from that profession. Maybe you do a few hobbies here and there in between, your jobs and in your profession. and then you retire, and then you retire, and then you die. That is our society. So maybe some of you will only know one thing with a few hobbies. Will only be skilled in one industry, and then have a few hobbies, and then pass away. And then your offspring, who most likely you'll have because you're on a death trajectory and you probably bought into having a family, right? Then your kids will do the same formula. They will go to 20 years of school, or maybe 15 or 13 or whatever, the 14 years of school, and then maybe take a trade school, and then learn their profession, whether it's pipe welding or something else. And they go and party and have fun and do whatever distractions that they do in our society, football, whatever. And then they go and retire. Maybe they go on a few vacations, travel the world a little bit every summer or something. And then they retire, and then they die. Well, Jilly Juice is like, hey, you know what? I'm gonna be 45 years old. I learned insurance. Now I did Jilly Juice. And who knows, the next thing, I learned to do gun stuff, right? And then maybe the next thing I'll learn how to be a chef. But right now, where my focus is to get this information out. So I did insurance for 10 years, learned, life and health and property and casualty, commercial insurance, learned how to do the cold calling, telemarketing, all that stuff, learned the office, learned, being a secretary or whatever, right? So that was what that's what gave me this foundation to live in our society. And then now I learning Jilly Juice and learn how to roll this out to people who have absolutely no idea that there's a possibility to the human body. So maybe the next 20, 30 years I do this, and then that will take off. And I have people that are working with me that will take it off too, and alert their world that this is a possibility and learn this. And then maybe my next life, whatever that is, I learn how to be a chef, or learn how to be a chef in between. Or I say, hey, my book is doing well, and this is doing well, or my husband's doing well, this and whatever, who knows? And then I learn some other skill that I'll enjoy. Like so I'm saying, sky's the limit. So right now it's so hard to predict the future, but right now I'm saying every day is a new possibility. And you never know what's going to happen. But as long as you're in the right context today and you're circulating within the right elements, it's going to be predictable where you're going to be in the future. But right now, yeah, some of you who are just starting this, you're going to be in pain. Just so you know, Lindsay, you're going to be in pain during this process. Some of you more than others, because some of you are way behind the 8 ball. But remember, pain is healing, and you got to face it for you to get to the other side. And your healing is going to happen in stages, okay? Because you have 11 different systems, and your systems have systems and subsystems, and there's mutations all over the place: parasites, fungus, other types of pathogens that are swimming around your body. You have antibodies from vaccines or from exposures to people that had vaccines. So you have antibodies that are still swimming around your system, and they're still inducing, more antibodies, right? So, you're going to have to repair the damage that's been done. And that does take time. Some of you, it's going to be a few years, because maybe you're in your 60s with so many mutations. So it took me I'm on my 3rd year to get to this point. But I only had premenstrual dysphoric disorder. I didn't have some autoimmune disorder. I didn't have anything crazy like cancer, or I was never in hospice. So my healing process was relatively benign, versus somebody else who's older than me with a lot more issues, or younger than me with so many diseases and disorders and cancers. Okay, so it's hard for me to say how long it's going to be for you guys, for those of you who are just starting this, because I have no idea what you're bringing to the table. But you will know, and as long as you stay as best you can on the diet, you do the Jilly Juice as much as you can, get the waterfalls, deal with the healing symptoms. It's a day by day, and you'll be peeling back the layers of stuff. And it is a marathon. It is not a sprint. This is not some remedy you find in the cannabis world, where you're just basically a walking zombie. This is where you're going to have to face who you are. And some people don't want to know who they are. They don't want to face who they've been, because, yeah, their biochemistry was messed up and they made bad choices. Now they got to come to terms with that. Okay, so you're going to be facing not only, your physical symptoms from the past, present, and then possibly future, but also your mental PTSD. And you're gonna have things just come up and you're gonna be like, whoa, where did that come from? You're gonna have things come up that you're just like for me, I had like, the past from the 90s come to the surface, before my period. I didn't think I was gonna get my period. I've been 49 days from October 20th to December 8th. And that was like my period back when I was 13 and 14. I thought I was gonna hit amenorrhea, but no. But when I was on my period, I was feeling sick and those memories were coming to surface a week or so prior, but I didn't have the PMDD. I didn't have what I used to have as far as the fatigue and the hopelessness and the depression like I used to. So the fact that I was sick on my period is telling me that the things that used to plague me, that were mutated, were finally repaired, and now it's just the actual day on my periods when I was sick. The 7 days I was on my period for 7 days. That's exactly like the type of cycle in a younger person. Before it was like 3 or 4 days that I had my period and then be done, and I could tell my period was going to come because things were mutated. That followed up to the day that I had my period. So I'm noticing changes. So I'm hoping that I will eventually hit amenorrhea where I don't get my period. And no, I'm not sexual either, not crazy sexual. I do once a week with my husband, and that's it. And so that's something you have to come to terms with too. So some of you are maybe mutated right now where you're not feeling super sexual, your libido is low because you're dealing with diseases, right? And then when you finally get yourself to where those issues get reversed, but you're still mutated, you'll find your sexuality come back, or your libido come back. And then when you get 100% well, or at least 99% well, you'll start seeing it taper off again. Okay, no different than when a woman who is menopausal, right? So it means that she's aged and her reproductive system is shutting down because it knows that it's on that death trajectory and she won't be around long enough to take care of that baby, or at least that's what the reproductive system is saying. That's why menopause is kicking in, because some people can trigger menopause in their 40s. Doesn't mean that they're going to die really soon, but it means that they have an attack on the reproductive system that is shutting it down. Okay, so then when you're on jillyjuice, you're going to start seeing your menopause symptoms, come up and then disappear. Then you get your period, and then you'll get your period for a while and you start, reversing issues that you have, known issues, known mutations. And then eventually you start seeing your sexuality taper off. You're not gonna be all horny and hot and horny and stuff. And then you start seeing yourself have a different focus. And I've gotten feedback from men that had that feeling that they're finally seeing more focus. They're not so focused on their below the belt. Okay, so these are the things that that you're gonna be aware of, and you'll watch your biochemistry change over time. You're not gonna be craving the nasty stuff anymore. You're not going to be intellectualizing your diet. You're going to be actually naturally gravitating towards the healthier food. The raw cabbage, the juice, fruits and vegetables. You're not going to be naturally gravitating towards the donuts and the pastas. Sometimes, yeah, pasta's okay. But I mean, when you're on the jillyjuice, it's going to have you intellectualize in the beginning because you have to kind of intellectualize over the parasites and the fungus. And eventually your biochemistry is going to kick in. Then you will naturally gravitate to the much healthier stuff. Okay, so that's a lot of information right now, but that's what to expect on jillyjuice. And then you got to schedule out your waterfalls. Okay, you don't want to have your waterfalls right before you get in your car to go to work. You've got to schedule your healing time, and with that healing time is going to be healing pains. Okay, so if you get a headache, you got to give yourself time to heal, to deal with that. So you choose the times. You don't have to do the waterfalls every day, because some of you have jobs. So you pick and choose. Let's say you want to do waterfalls twice a week, which is on the weekends, but then you keep relatively a clean diet during the week, and you poop every day because you don't want to accumulate poop, because you don't want to feel constipated during the week when you're trying to work, right? So you have to get rid of all that poop every morning if you can. Okay, and then and then you can do maybe a tiny bit of juice, but then if you do a tiny bit of juice, you get constipation, right? So if you're going to do the juice, you might as well just do the waterfalls, right? And so save the juice for the weekend so you can do the waterfalls, deal with the healing symptoms, and during the week you just poop it out. Lindsay, you got to go to my book. You're going to read about it. All right, it's basically peeing out your butt. It's like almost doing a laxative type of thing, but it's not. It's like diarrhea, but it's not. You're actually energizing your immune system to get rid of the negative elements, the foreign objects, the parasites, the fungus that is caked on to your colon and all of your intestines and all different parts of your body. If you did an x-ray on somebody and you just looked for the poop, you would see in a skinny person poop all caked on to the walls of their system, which is causing either their inflammation or their their malnutrition body. They look really skinny or really, really fat, one of the two. Okay. And so what Jilly Juice does is it energizes your immune system with the salt and the nutrients and the water, and it's pushing out all the crap in your system. Okay. And it's also fixing the cells that have been mutated. And that's why you have healing pains. Okay. So waterfalls is something that you're going to have to schedule. Okay. You don't want to be doing waterfalls and drinking my juice to induce waterfalls right before you go to work. Because you do, let's say you do a quarter of a jar of juice, that could be a couple hours of waterfalls. And then you're going to be thirsty. So every single time you drink water after you've done the juice, let's say you do like 4 cups and that induce waterfalls, well, you're going to get thirsty. You're going to drink water and that's going to get more waterfalls until you're not thirsty anymore. But sometimes you'll have waterfalls for a couple hours. So you want to at least leave like 4 or 5 hours after you've, induced waterfalls. So you have time to go back and forth to the bathroom, because accidents will happen. And you can't trust a fart on kale and cabbage juice if you're doing my protocol. Okay, so that's what I'm saying. Schedule your waterfalls out. Very good, George. Schedule your waterfalls out. Make sure that you're going to be home if you're going to be doing my juice and the waterfalls. And then let's say you take a break from the juice and you start feeling these healing pains or whatever. That's okay, because the body is still trying to repair itself even later on down the road. As soon as you give your body nutrition, it's going to go to work and do what it needs to do. And you have to expect that. So there's no going back. When you feed your body nutrition, there's no going back. Your body is starved right now. All of your bodies are starved. You're malnourished. And the aging in the population is a sign of that. Aging is cell degradation based upon malnutrition. We're no different than Ethiopia, except that we have access to food, but no access to the nutrition of that food. We have enough access to it, right, to keep us going. But you see the mortality rate right now in areas that are, that are much poorer. Their mortality rate is so much higher and at a younger age. And then you go into the 2 coasts where there's more money. Their mortality rate is not as much, but they're still dying. They're still coming down with these issues, but they're managing those issues until they can't anymore. And it's walking time bombs. You have no idea when that system is going to shut down based upon that prescription drug. Because prescription drugs and detoxes and pills, powders, and supplements and kombuchas and apple cider vinegars induce antibodies. Too many antibodies. It's jillyjuice, jillyjuice.com. Too many antibodies create the aging process. Okay? And it does shut the system down. So, all right. I'm going to go myself. But I'm glad you came aboard, Lindsay. Just get my book. Send us the receipt. There's an email on my website. You can register, and then my moderator will send you all the information too. Either way. But all of you guys, just know there's so much available with the protocol. And one of the hurdles that I jumped through that I was not expecting was to be a concealed carry weapons license holder, or on my way. I haven't gone through the background check yet, but I got qualified for it. So just want you guys to know there's so much available. I just don't even know what you don't even know what you don't even know until you actually do this. I mean, your world is going to change. Like, seriously, it's going to change. And I can't wait to hear all of the changes that you guys are dealing with when you're going through this process. All right. Have a great day. Thanks so much for listening.